Hello dear students and welcome for today's lessons in geography. In the previous class, we learned about natural vegetation and ecosystems that typify the Asiatic terrain. Today we shall learn about spatial distribution of population, agrometeorological evolution and traditional wisdom, languages and linguistic culture of the Asian peoples. We will thus touch upon economic centers in Asia, distribution of population according to industry, agrometeorological evolution and traditional wisdom, languages and linguistic heritage through agrometeorological evolution, and frontiers of cultivation. Economic centers in Asia. Asia is the largest continent in the world with the largest terrain or landmass, largest number of mountain ranges, rivers, seas, lakes, largest spectrum of climatic variations and largest population, ethnic and linguistic diversity, all of which have helped shape the demographic diversity in Asia. All the religions of the world were founded in Asia. It is no wonder then that it is the most thriving and happening place in the world. Historically, civilizations always developed and evolved sociologically on riverbanks and seaports. Thus, even today, people living on riverbanks have the collective wisdom of evolved thought process and have an edge over less dominated pockets of civilization. Considering that many ancient civilizations carved themselves on the riverbanks and ports of Asia, Asia has become the nest for many economic enterprises. Favorable agrometeorological conditions developed and fine-tuned the economic conditions. This led to economic self-sufficiency of the Asian peoples historically. This prosperity lasted till the dawn of colonialism in Asia. Examples of such economic self-sufficiency can be traced to international trade in spices, silks, handicrafts, textiles, minerals, precious stones, horses, sheep, camels, cattle and animal products, among others. The value attached to the commodities of international trade eliminated barter. It ushered in an era of commodification of a vast spectrum of human services, sowing the seeds of corrupt practices like dowry, bribery and material status in cash economies of Asia. These were indeed ideal conditions for colonial powers to establish political supremacy. In a measure of defiance, those societies which are still rooted in trade of agro-meteorological commodities have resisted corruption, colonization and economic colonization, also called neo-colonialism. These agroclimatic conditions have not only sustained the regional economies, but have attracted visitors. These conditions even led to wars and conquests and have shaped not only the sociological evolution, but also the historical and political evolution, economic development and political institutionalization. We thus see how geography and the landmass have literally shaped humanity's evolution in Asia. This is evident from the fact that the attractions of the ancient Silk Route led the Greeks to conquests of India. Beginning from the invasion of Alexander to date, Westerners are fatally attracted to the treasures of Asia. These attractions are the silks, handicrafts, spices, timber, mineral deposits and gemstones. Manufacturing was based on local availability of resources till the onset of the Industrial Revolution and the regime of the World Trade Organization. Literature, languages, school of architecture, fine arts and music were indicative of the cultural evolution of societies. Riverbanks and fertile plains, ports and cities became hubs of industrial and economic activities, and those areas with challenging geographic terrain remained economically backward and socially isolated. Bangalore in India is the only known exception which is neither situated on a port nor a riverbank, yet flourished with great strides in the development of science and technology, industrialization, trade and commerce. Successful economic enterprise manifests in bustling cities like Bangalore, Bangkok, Bombay, Beijing, Calcutta, Dubai, Delhi, Hong Kong, Karachi, Kuala Lumpur, Kyoto, Muscat, Macau, Shanghai, Singapore, Seoul, Tokyo and Taiwan. Other cities such as Colombo, Hanoi, Dhaka, Jakarta, Lahore and Hyderabad are reminiscent of the struggle for upward mobility of emerging economies. Distribution of population according to industry. As manufacturing was heavily dependent on local harvest of human resources and raw material, certain areas came to be renowned for certain commodities as well as traditions and best practices. Examples are handicrafts made of hardwood timber like oak, maple, cedar, among other hardwood species, are wooden boxes, book holders, wood carvings, trinkets made of wood, among other things. Carpets, embroidered fabrics, etc. are famous for Kashmir and the mountainous areas of Pakistan and Afghanistan in Asia. Fabrics made of wool, animal skins, delicacies of red meat and yak milk can be traced to the mountain folk of Himalayas, Tibet, Nepal, southwest China and southern China. The Mongolian tribes are known for their horsemanship and animal skin fabrication. They are equally renowned for their warrior traditions and meat-based delicacies as well as warm clothing. The geographical isolation of Japan led them to specialize in inventing scientific applications and manufacture of sensitive electronic goods which could be light in weight and volume for exports. Same is the case with Switzerland. We will learn more about Switzerland when we deal with Europe. Switzerland specializes in chocolates and sensitive electronics. India is a vast subcontinent with a very diverse spread of geographical features. In fact, all geographical features found on planet Earth are found in the Indian subcontinent. So, the products of local agro-meteorological evolution can be found across vast areas of India. Seashells and seafood in the island states, wood carvings, handicrafts, furniture, textiles, carpets, traditional toys are some of the known precious items for trade. Agricultural produce or farm produce span from cereal and grain production to floriculture, horticulture, orchid farming, spice trade, rearing commercial crops, sericulture and poultry farming, among other allied industries of animal husbandry. These are all subsumed under the banner of agriculture and are found in the Indian subcontinent. All sectors of agriculture are nourished by the landscape, climate and weather patterns, soil conditions and water availability in the specific region. Besides, the Indian subcontinent boasts of manufacturing, textiles, handicrafts, spices, agricultural produce and electronics, besides sectors like hospitality industry, tourism, information technology, mining and trade in precious metals and gems. That apart, the Indian subcontinent itself hosts a veritable pot of mineral deposits ranging from iron ore to precious stones like diamonds and manganese. For a full list and in-depth reading of the wealth that accrues from mining minerals in India, please do read the article available on this Wikipedia link. Among Asia's farm produce, some food grains and other farm produce enjoy near monopoly. Rice, wheat and tea are produced almost exclusively in the balmy tropics of Asia. Other agricultural produce include aquaculture, barley, beef, beet sugar, breadfruit, coconuts, coffee, corn, cotton, fisheries, jute, millets, milk and milk products, mulberry rearing, that is sericulture, potatoes, palm oil, pork, poultry, rye, rice, rubber, sugarcane, spices, soybeans, tobacco, tea, wheat, wheat, etc. Here below you will find a table comprising of statistics of agricultural output. Asia has a veritable palette of mineral deposits. These include, among others, aluminum, bauxite, calcium, copper, diamonds, emeralds, fossil fuels, gemstones and precious stones, iron ore, manganese ore, silica, uranium. That apart, industries like timber, logging, shipping, aviation, tourism and hospitality, services like medicine and healthcare, education, media are all on offer in the diverse societies of Asia. Almost all major minerals are found in the Asian continent. A few are as follows: aluminum, antimony, arsenic, asbestos, barium, bauxite, borax, cadmium, calcium, coal, cobalt, copper, corundum, chromium, dolerite, dolomite, diamonds, emeralds, fossil fuels, garnet, gemstones and gold. Asia's greatest mineral wealth is black gold or fossil fuel that ignites and sustains almost the entire world economy. The buying power that obtains from the trade in fossil fuels, ably assisted by favorable economic policies, have husbanded the unparalleled economic prosperity of Southwest Asian nations, rich in fossil fuel deposits. Yet, the severe climatic conditions in the desert regions of Southwest Asia and the cold desert regions of Northeast Asia account for the sparse population distribution in these geographical regions. Southwest Asia covers 100,000 square kilometers and is populated by about 6% of the population of Asia at 200 million people. These minerals sustain allied industries like oil and natural gas, jewelry making, mineral smelting, steel plants, shipping, logistical companies and many other manufacturing industries that utilize these natural resources. This spectrum of natural resources has the potential to spawn infinite employment opportunities, but transition economies of Asia are riddled with corruption, bureaucratic red tape, the green lobby and also not the least geographical questions like terrain, weather vagaries and low productivity amongst the industrial workforce. While tin accounts for 60% of the export of Southeast Asia, China exports large amounts of antimony and tungsten. Aluminum, tin, lead, tungsten, mercury, iron ore, natural gas and fossil fuel deposits, copper, coal, gold, manganese, zinc, sulfur, cadmium, molybdenum are widely spread out in Southeast Asia. For an in-depth reading of the mineral deposits available in the Indo-China region and Southeast Asia, please read this article available on this Wikipedia link. Thus, an industrial diversity and production menu should logically offer infinite prosperity to Asians, isn't it? However, the debilitating factors that restrict and constrict industrial production are malnutrition amongst the industrial staff, unproductive industrial workforce, illiteracy, inadequate infrastructure and logistics for shipment of manufactured goods, inadequate communication and power supply, weather vagaries including stifling heat and debilitating monsoon and weather systems, and last but not the least, political setups that control economic channels of trade and commerce. Tough terrain is no less invigorating. All these factors put together have ensured inevitably that the fruits of development and prosperity, in spite of vast amounts of natural resources, have not reached the people living in the prosperous areas. This shortfall has resulted in widening gaps between the rich and the poor and a steep graph of aspirations unfulfilled. Agrometeorological evolution and traditional wisdom. If Asia's people were evenly distributed throughout the continent, there would be only 181 persons per square mile or 70 persons per square kilometer. But many areas are so cold or so hot, so much lacking in arable land or so mountainous that few people live there. The vast majority of Asians live in river or mountain valleys or near sea coasts. The Indo-Gangetic fertile plains that span from the eastern banks of the Indus River system in Pakistan to the Gangetic Delta in Bangladesh, spreading across the North Indian fertile plains, accounts for the densest population in the subcontinent. The Yangtze-Kiang and the Honghe river basins in China are also very thickly populated. There, they can farm, fish or trade for a living. Thus, we see the development of a population in favorable agroclimatic or agrometeorological conditions. Traditional best practices of livelihood and culture, customs, languages, festivals were all developed in sync with agrometeorological conditions. For example, people living in isolated island regions of the tropical belt in Asia developed the skill of harpoon fishing. The people of Andaman Nicobar Islands and many other islanders in the tropical belt as well as the Arctic belt of Asia practice harpoon fishing. Harpoon fishing is ideally suited for choppy seas in island states laced by rocky outcrops where boating is very strenuous. Harpoon fishing in shallow waters is the logical evolution is found to be remarkably efficient. Another example is the development of cuisine in synchronicity with the food resources available. Island states of South and Southeast Asia have evolved irresistibly yummy recipes made of yams, coconut products, fish, rice, etc. Logically then, the overindulgence of locally available resources, whether in food, clothing, shelter or customs and traditions, were equated with higher economic status. The people in these areas designed and wove comfort fabrics that could assist them more than annoy them in their economic activities. Such livelihood-friendly clothing was again synchronous to the resources that were locally available. The fabric dimensions became minimalistic, inversely proportional to the humidity. For example, the tribes of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands find clothing cumbersome in the humid and steamy islands, and they have cultural sanction for nudity. Similar was the case with food. Fish, rice, coconut and tropical yams form the staple diet of island populace in the tropics of Asia. People in the Siberian Peninsula or in Mongolia consume red meat and plant wines for the staple food. Examples for such climate and livelihood-friendly fabrics include animal skins in the Arctic and Siberian stretches, cottons and jutes in the tropics. Another gastronomical wisdom has to do with balancing nutrition. People in Andhra Pradesh in India, for instance, use a lot of red chilies or red peppers in their cuisine. That is partly because green peppers do not grow sustainably in the hot, arid areas of Andhra Pradesh. To balance the spicy after effects of red chili based preparations, the people of Andhra Pradesh have evolved the habit of eating 2 small bananas and a helping of yogurt at the end of their meal. Similarly, people in France and Italy utilize their surplus milk produce to make milk products like cheese, which is often an indispensable ingredient in Italian cuisine. To offset the fatty after effects of cheese, the Italians have inculcated the habit of adding garlic in their sauces, and also they insist on moderate consumption of white wine, which neutralizes the fat accumulation because of cheese consumption. Yet, these agrometeorological conditions have remained the most challenging constraint for equitable distribution of resources, employment generation, manufacturing, farming and agriculture. Consequently, people living in ideal agroclimatic conditions were predisposed towards a material well-being and affluent living standards. While colonization ushered in a political system of equitable distribution of wealth and resources, the Industrial Revolution heralded an era of complex urbanization and mass migration of men and material. While industrialization heaved up living standards, it has brought in its wake complex systems of urban management, including public transport, public health and education, public administration, etc. The Industrial Revolution also heralded an era of material well-being and a somewhat awkward detachment from dependence on natural resources so plentifully available in the immediate neighborhood. A new value and status was attached to material well-being, buying power and consumption capacity, thus enhancing the status of the social group conforming to such economic standards. In China, vast land resources with equally vast diversity of mineral deposits has meant that mining is a significant sector of the economy. Agriculture, manufacturing, industries, infrastructure construction, educational centers, health and tourism are all booming in China. With a vast human resource base skilled in production and disciplined by the political regime, China has emerged as a robust economic power. China uses its economic clout to extend her political sagacity in international relations and geopolitics. Parts of Asia rank among the world's most thickly populated areas. They include Bangladesh, Hong Kong, Singapore, Eastern China, much of India, most of Japan, and the island of Java in Indonesia. In these regions, millions of people pack the big cities. Even many rural areas here have hundreds of thousands of people per square kilometer. Synchronous to the livelihoods that obtain from agrometeorological or agroclimatic conditions are the food intake, nutrition index, seasonal modifications of clothing and fabrics, customs, traditions, languages and linguistic heritage, and traditional wisdom and traditional knowledge. Based on agrometeorological food consumption, the people's genetic patterns vary. Large populations of South Asia consume rice as their staple diet. These populations are collectively lacking in vitamin B12, a standard so necessary in Occidental nutrition and developmental index. Vitamin B12 is available in smaller portions in other sources of food for rice eaters. Examples of agrometeorological livelihoods are traditional means and techniques for agriculture and fishing, trade, weaving, carving handicrafts, silks and fabrics, pottery, boat making, animal husbandry, tribal arts, perseverance of fine arts. They are all skills that are first molded and inspired by family settings in clans and groups in the respective regions. Languages and linguistic heritage through agrometeorological evolution. Traditional wisdoms are sum total of knowledge and practice which are developed on experience in dealing with situations and problems in various walks of life with available resources. For example, cooking with a generous supply of coconut milk in Sri Lanka is considered auspicious, enviable, privileged, and healthy. Having a cold water shower to wash one's hair in the nights is considered a bit dangerous to health in Sri Lanka. All coconut products have medicinal properties too in Sri Lanka and are most effective in the tropical heat of the country. Such are the ways of traditional wisdom that evolves through agrometeorological conditions. In the Indian state of Sikkim, for instance, another example stands at the opposite end of the spectrum. A daily shower is unwarranted thanks to the misty mountain climate of the Himalayan state. Elders in Sikkim counsel against a daily shower for both newborn infants and the frail and infirm. In the Andaman and Nicobar Islands in India, the indigenous people, still isolated from any contact with the industrial society, detest wearing any kind of clothing. Given the steamy environs of their traditional homes, it seems to be the most logical way of life. But what is interesting is that exposure of naked skin on body parts is not considered immodest amongst the indigenous people of the Andaman Nicobar Islands. Similarly, in India, Vastu Shastra or traditional architectural science is synchronous to the seasonal variations and agroclimatic or agrometeorological wisdom. Vastu Shastra bespeaks of ventilation in geometrical shapes, cooking corner in the southeast of the house and planting a shade-giving tree on the northwest corner of the plot. Similarly, Indian classical music has myriad compositions in various rhythms and moods that celebrate the seasonal changes in the tropical subcontinent. In Orissa, Traditional wisdom has it that a particular flower emits foul smell from near its roots, heralding a storm or a cyclone. The people of Orissa believe and understand this traditional early warning for storms much more effectively than the Cyclone Prediction Center of the Indian Meteorological Department. The instruction in the Vedic texts says, "Scatter the seeds where the fields are prepared." The word used for field is synonymous with the womb, kshetra. It draws a beautiful, sentimental and literary analogy to the divinity of Mother Earth. In Germany, the April weather is utterly unpredictable and uncharacteristic to spring. The saying, "April, April, wer weiß, was will," means April, who knows what it brings. Spring showers manifest as light snowfall in Germany. Further, a Latin saying has it that the master's eye is the best fertilizer. Agriculture not only gives riches to a nation, but the only riches she can call her own, said Samuel Johnson. A saying in the Indian language, Kannada, says, "Gedda ettinaha bala hidida hage," means success has many fathers, but failure is an orphan. Brick and mortar business in the world wired by the internet refers to the old economy where files built the case. One swallow doesn't make a summer means it is too early to be summer. Cake and coffee is a tea time tradition in Germany. No matter how long the winter, spring is sure to follow is a proverb in Guinea. There is no need to fear the wind if your hair stacks are tied down, according to an Irish proverb. Every time a sheep baas, it loses a bite is a European bedtime story for the children and is said to children who talk too much at the dinner table. Clear moon, frost soon is another agro-meteorological belief. Sunshine is delicious, rain is refreshing, wind braces up, snow is exhilarating. There is no such thing as bad weather, just different kinds of good weather. It is a quote attributed to John Ruskin. And finally, William Shakespeare says in the Midsummer Night's Dream, "The spring, the summer, the chilling autumn, angry winter change their wonted liveries, and the amazed world by their increase now knows not which is which." Frontiers of cultivation. Only about 1/10 of the world's land surface is at present under cultivation, little more than 0.404685 hectares per person. In the areas of cultivation, the maintenance of soil fertility is of utmost importance. Bad husbandry, including tree lopping, destroys the natural structure of the soil, with the result that it turns into dust, as in the Great Dust Bowl of the United States and North Africa, or into a new man-made deserts, or is washed off unprotected slopes by rain, leaving behind bare, unproductive subsoil, as in Yugoslavia or Greece. The areas of intensive cultivation are those in which the optimum use is made of soil. In Europe, states of the Commonwealth of Independent States, North America, parts of South America, South Africa and Australia, cultivation of all kinds on a commercial scale is carried on, mainly with the aid of mechanization. But in South and Southeast Asia, where land is scarce and therefore precious, the crops must support some of the densest rural populations in the world. Much of the work is done with simple hand tools. Yet, even so, 2 crops of paddy or rice per annum are obtained, as well as other kinds of cereal. In the areas of secondary cultivation, farming with crude tools and by means of rudimentary techniques predominates. The crops are largely grown for home consumption, though in some cases enough food such as cocoa, oil palm and peanuts are grown for sale in local markets. The areas of shifting cultivation are to be found near and among the tropical rainforests. Here, land is generally cleared indiscriminately for individual needs, and after being wastefully denuded of its fertility by primitive farming methods, they are abandoned. Where land in the tropical rainforests is successfully cleared and maintained, it is fertile and suitable for cultivation on a commercial scale of such plantation crops as rubber, tobacco, sugar, tea, oil palm and cocoa. The areas of coniferous forests provide the major part of the world's soft timber, spruce, pine, fir, and by means of intensive afforestation, some forests are being maintained and developed. The world's major logging and timber working industries are found in North America and Europe. The mountain slopes and much of the grassland and scrubland areas provide grazing for cattle and sheep and may thus be naturally maintained. Tropical grassland areas, when fully developed, may provide a variety of crops such as maize, millet, cotton, sugar and groundnuts, with grain predominating in the more temperate regions. Even in the desert regions, there are large areas of oases where the land is extremely fertile and not only food crops are grown, but grazing is also provided. The desert soil is often fine alluvial dust, which when irrigated is exceptionally fertile, as in the Nile Valley, the Indus Plains and the lower Colorado. Some oases may cover hundreds of square kilometers. But the patterns of cultivation vary from country to country according to their economic and social development. In the highly developed countries, relatively few workers are able to provide sufficient amounts of the right food for the entire economy. In the US, for instance, 450,000 people, or about 6% of the working population employed in cultivation, produce barely enough food, both in quantity and quality, for the whole population of that country. As a result of great advances in agricultural science since the Second World War, the yields in some areas such as North America, Europe, Australia and New Zealand have developed rapidly. In the less developed regions post-war, increases in agricultural production have been achieved mainly by bringing new land into cultivation. But as yet, these areas have scarcely begun to benefit from applying scientific and improved technical methods of farming, so that only 1/5 of the world's agricultural output is produced with the aid of machines. Among the scientific techniques adopted for better agricultural yield, effective irrigation systems, organic farming, multiple cropping, rotation of crops are considered most sustainable and effective in terms of yield and returns. Hybridization and chemical fertilizer inputs, popularly called green revolution in India, have ruined soil nutrition, depleted groundwater tables in many areas, and have rendered the lands fallow in many places. But advocates of the high yield varieties of crop say the green revolution was necessary in the second decade after Indian independence to mitigate food shortages. Today, agricultural science has made yeoman progress in technology and applications. These techniques include the breeding of improved disease and pest resistant varieties of seeds. Nourishing soil fertility through the use of legumes and crop rotation is sustainable in the long term. The introduction of new crops to provide a more varied and nutritious diet and to lessen a country's economic dependence on a single crop, forest conservation and afforestation. The better use of organic wastes as manures and the increased application of artificial or chemical fertilizers, better methods of cultivation, improved tools and the increased use of farm machinery. The reclamation of and settlement of new lands and control of pests have contributed to better agricultural output. Thus, we see the influence that terrain and weather have on culture, traditions, customs, language and food habits. That is the meaning and import of agro-meteorological evolution of an ethnic race. It thus helps us understand and appreciate the import and significance of regional geography. I hope you enjoyed this chapter as much as we enjoyed putting it together in this episode. In the next episode, we shall study traditional vocations, ethnic races in Asia. Do join us then. Until then, ciao.